Name again is Ryan McCuskey. I am the co-founder of Trip Merchant. Just to give you an idea, I'm actually born and raised in Winnipeg. I grew up in the streets of Charleswood, and I now live in Vancouver. I left Winnipeg at the latter part of my 20s. I lived in Calgary for about a year and a half. For 12 years, and then lived in Vancouver now for about a year and a half. But I'm always closely connected to all my family and friends in Winnipeg. And so I just like to make that initial connection to start. But today's presentation, I wanted to just give you sort of the format of what we'll be covering today. Very briefly, I want to review with you who Trip Merchant is, what we offer, also explain a little bit more about who you're traveling with, not just Trip Merchant, but our Trip Merchant Journeys, which is our tour operator arm of our business. And this will give you a better understanding of the brand standards, what you can expect on this group departure in Croatia, Slovenia. But firstly, in terms of the Trip Merchant's focus, our main business model is to work closely with membership-based organizations or associations like RTAM across Canada by providing you as a member with additional member benefits and savings and unique travel opportunities that really accommodate a wide variety of travel styles like river cruise, ocean cruise, guided tours, to destinations around the world with various travel suppliers. And we have many different benefits that we provide you, such as our loyalty program. We do many of these online presentations, trip contests, and more. And you can see our slogan there, gives you more. Trip Merchant gives you more. That's really our core focus. I obviously have the Retired Teachers of Manitoba Association of Manitoba logo there. Interestingly enough, RTAM and Trip Merchant formed a strategic partnership and to provide you as a member with these benefits in February of 2020. Not the best time, unfortunately, to kick things off, but the conversations were back in 2019, and who knew that from 2020 to about 2022, the world would be shut down. But I think it was a great opportunity to give you as a member or LUM members an idea of who we are, what we offer, and build more trust in terms of these different trip opportunities. So we really value the partnership with RTAM. We've had many RTAM members experience various trips with us worldwide. And then our Trip Merchant Journeys logo that you see there, as I mentioned, this is our tour operator arm of our business. I'll just really highlight this because on this Croatia-Slovenia program, it is focused on the brand standards that you'll see here. So first off, we do have two different divisions of Trip Merchant Journeys. There's group departures and private tailor-made. Private tailor-made is more so if you wanted to go with your, a couple or a small group, your family, and you wanted to choose whichever dates you wanted to do. We can customize it and tailor it to whatever you wish to do. We've had a lot of people sometimes, maybe the dates don't work for the specific departure, but we'll recreate that same itinerary just for a smaller group. Now, sometimes the pricing can go up, really depends on the destination, but it is something that we can customize. But a big focus is really the group departures that we have set up. We have various destinations that we offer around the world, whether it's Costa Rica, Colombia, Vietnam, Cambodia. You sort of see the list there. But our brand standards are really focused on being 16 to 24 passengers only. So a smaller group concept as opposed to 40 passengers, where you can go into areas that are a little bit easier with a smaller group as opposed to a larger group. So we want to make sure we accommodate that. Even in the accommodations, we tend to stay at hotels that can accommodate, sometimes a smaller group, not necessarily catering to larger groups, which makes it more unique in some cases as well. So the hotels, and on this trip to Croatia, Slovenia, will be 4 to 5-star hotels, centrally located hotels, or strategically located in nice locations, and I'll explain that today. Most of the meals are included, all your breakfast, lunch is sometimes open, really depends where you travel, and a good portion of your dinners. Usually 50 to 60% of the dinners will be included, and sometimes more, just depending on the destination. Now, on this Croatia program, it is a 13-night program. There are all your breakfasts are included throughout. There's several lunches, and then you have 7 dinners that are included. There's actually 23 meals are included and 4 tastings that we'll be doing. And I'll explain a little bit more about that in the presentation. We love to have a welcome briefing when we start our trips as well, just to kick things off, where you get to connect with your fellow travelers in destination. And obviously, we'll have a nice farewell dinner. I know on this one, we go into the countryside, into the hinterland, they call it, which is a little bit more remote away from the ocean and in these cultural, traditional towns where you have a nice dinner there. And then private transportation taking you throughout the destination is provided. We make sure these trips are very inclusive. There's very little options, if not any options available while you're on these trips, just because we make sure we include a lot. But now in saying that, we make sure we build in some leisure time, so you have some time to explore. But we really don't focus on having too many options, because then you end up spending more money, and these are items you should have included anyways. So we make sure we build it into the package. There is one leisure day near the end of the trip in Croatia, in Dubrovnik specifically, and there's several optional excursions you can do, but one could be even going to Montenegro, because Montenegro is not too far away. Going to Qatar, Montenegro is only about 2-hour drive or so. So you could do a day trip out there. If you want to knock off another country, that's an opportunity. But in terms of inclusivity, it's culinary experiences, cultural experiences, these tastings you'll have in Croatia, Slovenia as well. More so in Croatia, we'll be doing those tastings. Expert local guides. You'll have your local or national guide mixed in sometimes with these local guides, depending where you are on the tour. And then we have a group trip app, which I'll share actually in the next slide. But overall, these are our brand standards for the programs. The Trip Merchant Journeys programs, we have usually about 25 to 30 of these different departures throughout the year. This Croatia-Slovenian program is a Trip Merchant Journeys program. A lot of times these trips will sometimes be hosted by myself or my business partner, Tom, or a trip merchant representative. But in this case, we do use a lot of our in-destination partners, and our in-destination partners will be representing Trip Merchant as well. So they're from the country, taking you throughout. But on this departure, we actually have Peter Narth, who will be the RTAM representative, hosting it as a Trip Merchant representative as well. And I'll share more about Peter in a moment too, but it gives you an idea of our Trip Merchant Journeys brand. Now, this is a nice feature as well. On our group departures, we have a group trip app. And this group trip app, as you can see in the image there, these are some past slides that we have or screenshots. But you essentially will have an app that everybody in the group will receive. This app will have a countdown to your trip, get you excited before going. It will be the same information for everybody, but it has travel documents. It has your day-by-day itinerary. It has all the details of the hotels, what the weather will be like, points of interest, different restaurants or attractions nearby where you are. It'll also have a section which is called the memories section, where you can actually upload your photos throughout your journey to share with the group. And it really acts as like a travel journal or a photo journal throughout your whole trip. It's a really neat feature. We've had many groups, all of our groups for Trip Merchant Journeys groups receive this. And this is just some examples actually from a British Columbia retired teachers group we did, and retired teachers of Alberta group that we did, who utilized the group trip app. And then lastly, and I promise we're getting into Croatia, Slovenia next, I just want to make you aware, anytime you book a trip with Trip Merchant, you will receive Trip Merchant loyalty reward dollars. Travel more, save more is the concept. So you earn 2% cash rewards on all land and cruise travel booked. It just excludes airfare, taxes, port charges, etc. As you see here. You can have the opportunity to accumulate these travel dollars to use towards future travel, or just use it towards your next trip if you want. We have some members that have been traveling a lot since they're making up some time, and it's well over $1,000, so they're still building it up, and it could contribute to half of a trip or whatnot. But again, it is just to put in perspective, by the way, let's say it's $10,000 for two people, it's about $200. $200 you would receive as a loyalty dollars to use towards future travel. This is a new logo that we'll be utilizing going into the future with our next travel website platform, which should be launched in May or June. We're patiently waiting for this, but I'm looking forward to us launching this. These are, by the way, just some photos of some groups we've had over the years. This is, of course, in Egypt. This is another one. We had a sunset dinner in Costa Rica, Manuel Antonio. Another group at the Ngorongoro Crater in Tanzania. We actually have an RTAM member in this photo here as well, but today she's on our Belize long stay program or combo stay program. This is another great program in Iceland. And then Vietnam, Cambodia. So again, just give you some comfort and trust in terms of who you potentially would be traveling with and what the experiences would be like in terms of the brand standards. Now I want to really dive into the main feature highlight presentation here, which is Croatia and Slovenia. I'm just going to turn off my camera just so it's not distracting to everybody. I'm just going to turn that off. So you should still be able to see my screen. Now, Croatia and Slovenia. This is an RTAM exclusive departure. Right now, we have 8 to 10 people, I believe. Actually, there's potentially 2 to 4 more that have expressed interest in booking. There are actually a lot of people who just wanted to see the presentation, get familiar with the program. But I trust by the, probably after the end of this month, there potentially may be very little space, but based on the inquiries we've been getting, but right now we are at about 10 passengers booked or so. Now the departure date is an ideal time frame to travel, October 16th to the 30th, 2024. This, just to make it clear, October 16th is the day that you would depart from Winnipeg or from Canada. You arrive into Zagreb on the 17th, and then you have 13 nights in Croatia, Slovenia, departing on the 30th of October back to Canada, or you can extend your stay. You can always add pre-nights or post-nights, go somewhere else in Europe as you wish. There is flexibility to do that. Now, in terms of where you're visiting, by the way, this photo is Dubrovnik, one of my favorite locations in the world. It is breathtaking, as you see in this photo, but you do start in the capital city on this program in Zagreb. You have, again, a couple days there, but you'd make your way to Ljubljana, Slovenia. And Ljubljana, Slovenia, you then travel to Lake Bled on a day trip, but you come back to Ljubljana for 2 nights. You stay at the hotel in Ljubljana. You then travel back over to Opatija into Croatia. It's about a 2.5 or so hour drive into Opatija. And then from there, after 2 nights, you'll go to Plivice Lakes. From there, 1 night, you'll go down to Zadar, Trogir. Actually, you go to Zadar down to Split. You stay 3 nights in Split and have a day trip out to Trogir. And then on the way to Dubrovnik, you'll be visiting Stone as well. So again, a lot of great locations to visit. I always say, if you're going to Croatia, you have to add Slovenia. It is so close, and a lot of itineraries tend to miss adding in Slovenia. And a lot of people rave about Croatia. They rave about Slovenia, but there's something about Slovenia that is unspoiled, and people really love going into that region and knowing that it's so close. They're so close to going there, but if you have the opportunity to go there, such as this program, you will not be disappointed with it. Now, in terms of the trip being hosted, your tour host is Peter Narth, who was part of the executive RTAM. He retired over a year ago, working in and for the public education for over 40 years as a teacher, administrator, and senior civil servant. I won't go into all the details here. You can sort of preview this, but Peter will be involved in terms of managing and hosting the trip. So he'll be joining you on this trip. He'll be involved, and I've been a host on many different departures, so I know what's involved. But essentially, it's just making sure in destination everything's running smoothly, having communication with the driver, the guide, and making sure that again your rooms. Room configuration, 1 or 2 beds that you requested is all set. That is always sent in advance to make sure it's clear. But if, let's say, there is something that's not set up properly, Peter and the guide are there to sort of coordinate that with the hotel. But again, that rarely happens, but that potentially could be the case. just helping keep organizing in conjunction with the tour guide and making sure you're taken care of throughout the program throughout. But again, there's more details on that, and Peter and I will have further discussions on some of the other roles and responsibilities. But it's great that Peter will be joining to make sure everything really flows properly throughout the program. Now, in terms of the destinations, Croatia and Slovenia. I personally have been to Croatia and Slovenia twice. I was there 20 years ago, a very long time ago, and actually 8 years ago. And a lot has changed over those years, but I still call it one of my favorite destinations, arguably one of my favorite destinations in Europe. It just is, it's such an incredible area. It's gaining so much more popularity in the recent years. Definitely the last 5 years, more and more people are traveling here for many reasons, which I'll share. But I actually will be going back to Croatia this May. I'll be doing a few different areas similar to what you'll be experiencing on this group departure. So there's a lot more information that I can share when I return, which would be even more valuable as you prepare for your October departure. But in terms of Croatia, Croatia does have a wonderful climate throughout the year, on the Mediterranean especially. It does have 2,500 hours of sun per year, which is incredible. And throughout the destination, there are cultural cities. There's these picturesque ports and towns or villages, the stunning nature. They have many national parks and waterfalls. Actually, about 10% of the landmass of Croatia is preserved by national parks. Now, in terms of the coastline, it is absolutely breathtaking. Nothing will rival the Dalmatia coast and the Adriatic in terms of a driving route. It is just spectacular. The coastline from really all Croatia's coastline would be from the Croatia and the Adriatic Sea mainland coast would be equivalent to about just over 1,700 kilometers of coastline. Now, if you consider all the islands and all the islands they have, which are over 1,200 islands off the mainland, now you consider the coastline of those islands, it now adds on another 4,000 of kilometers of coastline. It's pretty amazing. But the Dalmatia coast, which is a really big focus point when you go to Croatia, it really starts the upper part of just above Zadar and then goes into Kotar, Montenegro. It's about 375 kilometers along that routing, but it's one of, again, most spectacular drives you'll take, and I'll share some photos. There's 4 historical regions in Croatia, which is Slavonia, which is more in the northern part. Then you have central Croatia, you have Istria and the Istrian Peninsula, and then you have Dalmatia. So it gives you a bit of an idea there. There's more to share on Croatia, but I love the medieval castles, the fortresses, and the towns, the hospitable people. If you're a Game of Thrones fan, they've definitely done a lot of scenes in Croatia, and you're visiting 3 different areas on this trip where there was filming of Game of Thrones. And of course, Croatia and Slovenia have had a turbulent history in the past. They became an independent nation, each of them, Croatia and Slovenia, in 1991, June 25th, 1991, which, again, you learn a lot more about when you're in destination in terms of the history of the battles and so forth. Sorry, just letting someone else in. In terms of the population, there's just under 4 million people in Croatia. The language in Croatia is Croatian, but over 90% of the population speaks Croatian. There's maybe a small amount that do speak Hungarian or even Albanian or Italian, but their English is coming a long way in Croatia. Before, when I was there 20 years ago, their pleases were thank yous, their thank yous were pleases. It was kind of the opposite, but now they're, with the tourism that's coming to the destination, the tourist sites, the hotels are doing a great job of making things more smooth in terms of the communication. But it is Croatian is their main language. Their currency used to be on the kuna. It's now on the euro. As of 2023, it's now officially on the euro. It does make that easy now because Slovenia has been on the euro, and now both countries are again, the currency being on the euro. And now in terms of the cuisine in Croatia, I'm just getting hungry because I haven't had my dinner yet, of course, but I'm also just thinking about the Croatian food. It is a diverse cuisine in Croatia. It's known as the cuisine of the regions, since every region in Croatia does have this distinct culinary style or tradition. And most of the food in Croatia you'll find is centered around meat and seafood. There's vegetarian options. We can always accommodate that on these trips. But they also have pasta and risotto dishes. One of my favorite meals in Dubrovnik in Croatia was seafood risotto right on the edge of the old city walls of old Dubrovnik. Absolutely delicious. But again, lots of great food, lots of great options. I want to say a smorgasbord of food, to be honest. One of their national dishes is the Istrian jota, which is made of beans, potatoes, bacon, and sauerkraut, and has become, again, their national dish, more so from the region of Istria, where you will be going. In terms of the climate, now I'm not going to go over all the months, but really the best time to visit is to go in the spring and the fall. You can go in the summer, of course, and that's a great time, but it is very busy with cruise ships. It is very warm and hot. It's overcrowded. Prices tend to be inflated. More and more people are starting to choose to travel in this quote unquote shoulder season. And if you go into April, May, even the first part of June, it's good. But as soon as you go latter part of June, July, August, even into September, it can be quite busy. But you go into October, the crowds, even though the temperature is still desirable and still sunny in Croatia, the crowds start to fade away. And you go into the month of October. Your temperature, depending where you are, will be in the high teens to early 20s. So it's a very comfortable temperature during that time. The Croatian climate really does have two different climates: the interior, which is separated from the coast and by the mountains, and then they also have the continental climate, which is similar to us. It's hot summers, cold, snowy winters, and then the coastal area of the Mediterranean would be hot, dry summers, short and mild, somewhat wet winters, again, more so December, January, February. When I was there, I've been there in July and I've been there in December. I remember being in Dubrovnik in December and the temperature was about 22, 23 degrees Celsius and sunny. So you never know what you can get, but that just gives you an idea. Now in the evenings it can get, maybe a little cooler, of course, but I would say average is sort of that high teens, 18 to 20 degrees Celsius approximately. Now when you go to Slovenia, Slovenia is a really neat small country, 2.1 million people. It's a much smaller country than Croatia, or a lot of countries, I should say, in Europe. But it's packed with so much natural beauty. It has lakes and beautiful, stunning landscapes that you can explore. And the capital city of Ljubljana is one of my favorite small cities in Europe. Slovenia has over 8,000 caves. Their language, their population again is 2.1. Their language is Slovenian, obviously, and they do have some small minority like Croatia being Hungarian and Italian, but the Slovenian language actually has about 46 dialects, which is incredible. And there's just so many neat locations to visit throughout. We'll be focused more so on Ljubljana and Lake Bled. And the climate, again, they do have various climates. They're not right by the ocean per se. They have the sub-Mediterranean, alpine, and continental. I would say it's going to be slightly cooler than Croatia in some parts that you're going to, but it really depends. But it's a good time to go to Slovenia because you start to see a lot more of the autumn colors there. And some rain sometimes, but it's not torrential, but you have sunny days and it can be kind of a mix, but it's a great time to go. And again, you avoid the crowds. I've been there in December and it's a little cooler, of course. They have the Christmas markets at that time, but it was, I think we had a little bit of snow, tiny bit of rain, but it was not much. But that's December, much different than going in October. Now, again, that gives you some information on the destinations. Here's just an idea of the map of Croatia and Slovenia. They used to, of course, be part of Yugoslavia until they became independent in 1991. But you have Croatia and Slovenia, always a great way to experience both together on a program. Then you see some of their neighboring countries like Bosnia, Serbia, Montenegro. There's even Kosovo, but really the focus is the Slovenia, Croatia. And I'll show you another map of our routing in a moment, but you can appreciate all the islands that they have, over 1,200 islands off the coast of Croatia. Now, here's the idea of the program. Again, you have 2 nights at the Hotel Sheraton, a really nice five-star hotel in Zagreb. 2 nights at the Grand Hotel Central, a four-star central located in Ljubljana. And then 2 nights at either the Hotel Ambassador or the Keat Hotel. We recently just got an opportunity to maybe move to the Keat Hotel, which is a brand new hotel right in the city center. And I'll share more on it, but it does have 54 rooms compared to the Hotel Ambassador, which is about 250 rooms. So it's more boutique, and it may be more fitting for a smaller group that we have. But it's a really neat hotel under the Hilton group, more of a boutique Hilton hotel, very centrally located in Opatia. And then 1 night at Hotel de Genji. These words have been a little challenging at times, but Hotel de Genia. And this is in the Plivice Lakes region. And then 3 nights at the Hotel Art, which is a four-star in the center of Split. And then 3 nights at the Hotel Lapad in Dubrovnik. I'll share more on these, but again, this is just the layout for the 13 nights that you have. This is the routing. So from Zagreb, after 2 nights, you go to Ljubljana. It's about a 2.5 hour drive approximately to Ljubljana, so not too far. Ljubljana to Lake Bled is about an hour drive, if not less. You come back to Ljubljana, stay the 2 nights. You then travel down to Opatia, which is maybe 2.5 or so hours, 2.5 to 3. Then you have the 2 nights there. One full day, it would be at 9 o'clock till about 5 o'clock. You'll be out on the Istria Peninsula. You can't go to this area without experiencing this, but you go to Pula, which is about an hour and a half or so. Ravine, is only about 45 minutes to an hour. And then there's also, we'll be doing a truffle tasting, and this is in Motovan, which is about an hour away, and then an hour back to Opatia. But you get a lot of great scenery, a lot of great experiences there. And then from Opatia, you'll make your way up to Plivice Lakes or down towards Plivice Lakes, and you spend 1 night there. A lot of companies sometimes will do the drive all the way down to Split, sometimes all the way to Dubrovnik. Becomes a very long day. But to stay in Plivice is actually quite nice and relaxing, and it eases the pace of the routing. And you have a night there, not too far away from the main gates of the Plivice National Park. From there, you drive down. It's probably in total hours of driving, about 3.5 to 4 hours down to Split from Plivice down. But you're stopping along the way. You stop in Zadar. Then you make your way to the hinterland. You do a tasting there, some wine and so forth. And then you make your way back down to Split, where you spend 3 nights. You don't actually go to Sivanik. You go by there, but you do go on a day trip to Trogir, and also a day trip out to this place called Klis, the Klis Fortress. And then after the 3 nights, you go to Stone, which is maybe an hour and a half away from Dubrovnik. That drive is about 4.5 hours or so, up to 5, I would say, driving. But again, you will be just in silence in terms of how amazing the scenery is along the drive. And then you spend the 3 nights in Dubrovnik. I'm probably gonna maybe send this video out. Actually, I'm gonna try and show it. Just sometimes the video doesn't always play the music, so it'd be unfortunate if you don't hear the music, but you'll get some of the scenery. Worst case, I will provide this video in the follow-up email. So I'll push play. It's not too long, just over a minute or so. I'm going to stop it there just in case, again, you can't hear it, but I will send this video to you all after. You can see there's a lot of sports players there and even actresses, but the Croatian soccer team is becoming quite popular. You know, it's 4 million people and they're competing against countries with many more people and they're doing very well. But you can see there's a lot of soccer influence. Football or soccer is their national sport, and it's really clear when you travel to Croatia. Now, we depart from Canada. Again, it's October 16th. You would arrive into the 17th of October into Zagreb, the capital city of Croatia. We'll talk a bit more about flights and things like that near the end of the presentation and some options. We can always look for different flight options for you, of course, but we can give a general idea on that near the end. Now, in terms of if you wish to add pre-nights, we've had some people who have booked that wish to add some pre-nights to the program. We can always add a night or two before the start of the first night of the trip. So we can always do that. You just make a request for that. But again, this is your hotel. The Sheraton Group, obviously, universally across the world, they do a very good job. It's a 5-star hotel right in the downtown area. And again, very conveniently located for the 2 nights that you're in Zagreb. So now we're starting off our adventure for going throughout Croatia with the amazing landscapes, rich history, and again, a lot of amazing food and yeah, scenery along the way. Now, in Zagreb, you basically would arrive, you have your first night, we have a welcome dinner that evening. The next day, you would do a tour of the city of Zagreb. Zagreb, again, 800,000 people live in this capital city, and it really is distinguished by its 18th and 19th century Austro-Hungarian architecture, which you'll see throughout the city. They do have the Old Town, which is really neat, the upper and lower parts of the city. And they have, again, this charming medieval Old Town, which is nestled at the foot of this mountain that they have. It's in the north of Zagreb, called Medvednica. And it's not known as the Bear Mountain. But when you're touring around in the city of Zagreb, you will be seeing some of the impressive monuments, such as this one. This is the Croatian National Theater in Zagreb. It's, again, a theater, an opera, or a ballet house, and it's an impressive architectural masterpiece established in 1895. There's also, driving by, the Memara Museum, which is an art museum. But again, you're seeing some of the exterior architecture that it has to offer. And then we'll be making your way into, the pulsing heart of the city center, which is called Ban Jelesic, which is their main square. You'll be taking a funicular cable car from the lower part to the upper town quarter of which you see here actually is the upper town quarter of Zagreb. And you take the historic funicular. It's a funicular that dates back to about the late 1800s, actually, and you go from the lower to the upper town, just a short little ride that takes you up. And here you'll see, again, just some of the monuments that they have here are attractions, such as the St. Mark's Church. Here's actually an example of the funicular that takes you up. And then you have, again, the St. Mark's Church, which is one of the oldest architectural monuments in Zagreb, dating back to the 13th century. And you can see the colorful tiles on the roof as well, which is quite remarkable. And nearby is, again, right here is the St. Mark's Square, but nearby as well, there's a street with a lot of different shops and restaurants called Tekal Siva Street, and again, just a lot of area to sort of explore. And they also here have the twin-spired Zagreb Cathedral, which is in the upper town section as well. But again, just a little taste that you get of Zagreb on the city tour. Again, some of the different shops and restaurants in the old city. Again, I love the old cities, these old little parts of all these, sometimes escaping the modern side of these cities and going to the old cities really makes you step back into time a little bit. So then you have, again, the 2 nights there. We'll then drive into Ljubljana, or into Slovenia, which again is about 2.5 hours or so to get to Slovenia. And it is a hidden gem, I like to say, Slovenia, especially going to Ljubljana and Lake Bled. Ljubljana has a population of about 280,000 people. It is a picturesque capital, as you can see by this image here. And it really is mixed or full of charm and this rich history. And even its oldest parts date back almost 2000 BC. But the architecture, they preserved some areas of the Roman period, but in the Baroque Old City area, in the Old Town Center, they have the Baroque style type of architecture. So some of the key attractions within Ljubljana, I mean, they have several, but the main river that they have, the Ljubljana Castle that you see in the top there, and the Old City would definitely be some of the areas you'd visit. When I first went to Ljubljana again 20 years ago, I would say it almost resembled like a mini Venice in a way. I mean, it's a little different, of course, but when you're along the river and the main street lining the river, it does feel, especially at night, like you're in Venice in the evening. It's really neat to see that. But in Ljubljana, it does have the Tivoli Gardens, which are quite popular. They're really a large green space, but you can get some nature. The hotel we have is in a very nice location, really just steps away from the old city. Throughout the city, they have different bridges, but also, again, the river, which is the Ljubljanica River that they have. And when you're doing the city tour of Ljubljana, you'll be doing some of the main attractions, such as first going to the Ljubljana Castle, which is this castle looking over the city. Anywhere you walk in the city as well, below the castle on the hilltop, you really, at certain corners, you can see the castle up there. But it's been there for about 900 years. It was probably constructed, they say, in the 11th century, rebuilt in the 12th century. So a lot of history attached to it. When you go here, you will be going Ljubljana Castle. And this is just, again, from the castle. They started this recently where it's a time machine. It's like traveling back into time, into different eras or periods that the Ljubljana Castle has gone through. And so over the centuries, you'll see the differences. And the castle really remains an important symbol of the city of Ljubljana. You'll have the castle guide that will lead you to I'll go back here, to 6 different stations. And again, each of them will be costumed, as you see here. I know it shows 5 people, but there's actually 6 different stations. And they really bring these eras or these periods to life. And it's just a fascinating experience. And you get great views of the city of Ljubljana as well. So you go there, and then you'll actually be going down into the city center again, and you'll be going onto the Ljubljanica River and taking a little boat cruise as well. So it gives you a different perspective. But I wanted to mention that the dragon is actually a key symbol of, or really Ljubljana, I should say, is known as the city of dragons. And so there's an interesting story attached. The legend has it, and I won't go into all the detail, but basically, Jason, who was the hero of Greek mythology, he had his comrades, which were the Argonauts, they would be called, and they're at the Black Sea. They traveled far away, and essentially they came to the Ljubljanica River, just at the end of it, and they actually had to disassemble their boats and ship and then rebuild it at the Adriatic coast to make their way back up to Greece. And on the way, they stopped at this large lake in the marshes. And it was actually from the source of that river, Ljubljanica. And this is where a dragon was. And Jason apparently fought, defeated, and killed the monster. And that's why they call Ljubljana really the city of dragons. And you'll see a dragon on the dragon bridge. You'll see a symbol throughout the city as well of the dragon, which is pretty interesting. This is the river. Again, this gives you an idea of how it feels like a little bit of a Venice, as you can appreciate in this photo. And you'll be taking a boat cruise through the water here as well, and just getting a different perspective, seeing the daily life and activity along the way. This photo here is actually, when I look at it, and I look at this photo, it's very similar to this one. This photo I took 20 years ago, which is pretty amazing. This is in the evening. So again, it just gives you a different perspective at nighttime. Um, Again, Ljubljana, great city, great. A lot of people fall in love with it. We'll be there 2 nights, and then you're staying, by the way, at the Grand Hotel Central. It's also called the Grand Hotel Union by Eurostars, and it's one of the better hotels in the city of Ljubljana. It's again steps away from the old city center. If you go onto their website, you'll see how close they are to different parts of the city. So very walkable from there, and more of an elegant style hotel located in this Art Nouveau building dating back to 1905. It has some neat character to it. Then their next day, you'll then go to Lake Bled. Lake Bled is only, again, 45 minutes to an hour away, so not too far from Ljubljana. And it really just welcomes you with this amazing scenery and the Julian Alps you see in the backdrop here. I mean, this is where you're located in the Emerald Green Lake. And the medieval castle. You also have this island with the church in the middle, which we'll share more on. But you just fall in love, and you're just mesmerized by how beautiful this location is. Now there is a small town of Bled here as well, but this is the Bled town and then the Lake Bled. It's not a massive lake, but it's quite picturesque as you can see. Now, one of the main modes of transportation, really the only mode of transportation pretty much on the water, are pletnas. The pletna is a wooden flat bottom boat, and it's basically like a canoe that's covered. They can fit in, I believe up to around 18 people or so into the boat. Sometimes you'll go into separate pletnas or going around. But the oarsmen have a really unique technique where they're standing and rowing with two different oars. So this is the traditional way to go through the lake, and it really is sort of similar to the Venetia gondola boat that you would see, but it does have its own little features here. And the Pletna boat, or the Pletnar, I should say, the oarsman, the one that operates it, is actually quite an esteemed vocation, and not anyone could do it. It's actually been passed on from generation to generation since the 1590, that they have this, it's their job and to carry on the tradition or the generations, where they would be taking the Pletna boat rides throughout. And I believe there's just over 20 of these Pletna boats that operate today in the water here. So quite interesting. And then you make your way through the waters. Of course, there's different types of boats like a canoe, but the Pletna is traditional. This is the way you go through the lake. And you see some of the different attractions here. So first you go to you can see the Church of Queen Mary. And this church is kind of has this Baroque style architecture style within. And within it has this tower bell, and the tower bell has been there since really the mid 1400s, and it still stands today, all intact. And if you ring the bell, it's a wishing bell. It will bring you good luck. So there are 99 stairs. If you even just being in the area on the island, taking pictures, getting a totally different perspective, which are not easy photos to always take, because this is just, you're on the island, you get a totally different perspective. You can also take the 99 stairs to the top if you want. It's a Baroque style stairway that gets you up there, and you can see obviously the tower bell. You can see some of the art frescoes or just the architecture. But just a fun fact actually is that sometimes a lot of weddings will take place here. And there's the tradition when the newlyweds are married, the groom is supposed to carry the bride up to the top through up the 99 stairs to the top. I don't know how successful they are each time, but it is a goal, because as soon as they get to the top and they ring their wishing bell together, it will bring them, the newlyweds, a long and happy marriage. So maybe you want to try this when you're there, but again, this is part of the experience and part of the fun that the guide would share with you. Again, just another perspective of the water there. And again, just a really neat scenic day trip that you take here. You also will see, sort of back up a bit, and you'll see the Ljubljana, or not Ljubljana, the Lake Bled Castle or fortress here. The Bled Castle is, again, a medieval castle, dates back to around the year 1000, and overlooks Lake Bled. It's one of the most popular attractions in in Slovenia. And then from there, after 2 nights, you make your way towards Opatia. This is the Croatian Riviera, and the bay is called Kavarner Bay. It's again very picturesque. Anywhere along the coastline, you'll just be in awe and just really in silence because of how incredible it is. This is the cradle of Croatian tourism, but as I mentioned, the Croatian Riviera. This for years was a favorite spa resort or summer retreat for the Habsburgs and European aristocrats. It's pretty interesting. So it's got a lot of prestige here. And again, when you arrive, we'll basically do a little light walking tour, and then you'll actually also do a little chocolate tasting as well in Opatia. And it's very small. It's not really a large town, but there's different hotels and restaurants and shops that line the main promenade along the water. There's stairs that go down into the water, stairs that come back up. And I'll share more again. This is the Hotel Keat that we're looking at doing. It's not right on the water, it's just across the street. Again, it's fairly small, but it's they have a rooftop pool, and it gives you great views of the Bay Area and the scenery along the coast. And again, they only have about 54 rooms here, so it's very small boutique, and it's a newer hotel that we'll be looking at. The other one, which is Ambassador, another great hotel. It does again have 250 rooms there, so it's quite large. They never guarantee the sea view room, so you could be disappointed if you're staying there and you don't have a sea view room. But also the hotel more so is outside the city center, so it takes a little bit to walk into the heart of it with the restaurants and shops, and that's why we're looking at the Keat Hotel as an option. Hotels can always be subject to change. We try to always keep it again to that 4 to 5 star quality, very centrally located, and this is an example of one that we're looking at. Potentially replacing the Ambassador just due to the uniqueness of it. So, but more information, share any questions on that. We're happy to answer anytime. The next day, we're traveling from Opatia to go along the Istrian Peninsula. And again, this is a full day trip that you'll be doing. You leave around 9 o'clock and come back just after 6 o'clock for dinner time. But it's a jam-packed with a lot of great things to see, and it does have a nice pace to it. So first you'll be going to Pula, as you see here. And Pula is about an hour and a half or so away from Opatia. And this is where you get to see this 2,000-year-old Roman amphitheater, which you see in this photo, of course. Pula is really a seafront city, and it's on the tip of the Istrian Peninsula. It's actually known for its protected harbor. They have this beach-lined coast and some of the Roman ruins, as you see here. And it's been occupied, destroyed, and rebuilt many times. And, just to paint the picture, there's been Romans here, the Venetians, the World War II. It's been, each of them have administered the city. So within this city, to think about all this that has come in and out of there, and to have this well-preserved amphitheater is quite incredible. The Pula Arena, where you'll be going in, is, again, this Roman amphitheater. It's one of the only remaining Roman amphitheaters to have, actually, it is the only Roman amphitheater to have 4 side towers entirely preserved. And it was constructed back in 27 BC and 68 AD. And it's among the world's 6 largest surviving Roman arenas today. So again, really a neat opportunity to explore that and see it up close and personal. By the way, on this trip, you do have whisper headsets where the guide speaks into a microphone, and you have your individual earpieces so you can hear them, even if you're a little bit further away from the guide, or if there's a lot of people around, it's very easy to hear as the guide speaks into the microphone. So it's really a nice advantage to have that throughout the program. Next, you're making your way towards Ravine, another really neat location. This would be arguably the more beautiful city in the Istrian Peninsula, and it has been inspiration for many artists, they say, as well. In Ravine, this is, again, a Croatian fishing port. It's on the western part of the peninsula, and the old town stands right at the point or the peninsula with all these houses, as you can see here. They're tightly crowded down to the seafront area. And then while you walk through the cobblestone streets, it leads up to the church that you see here. and it's on the hilltop, and the steeple really dominates the skyline. It's a pretty small town, as you can see here, but you can go up there if you want. But this is, just a better sort of aerial view of it. And when you're there, there's the old town, as I mentioned. There's also this little bay with this a pebble type of beach, and they also have in Rovine archipelago, actually, a ravine archipelago, about 14 small little islands right off the main land of this peninsula as well. So some nice scenery to see there too. So you have a brief visit here before going to, love this opportunity. This is Ravine as well. Next is going to Montavoon. And Montavoon is where you get to try truffles. Love truffles. I think everybody loves truffles. But anyways, we'll get into that. But Montavoon is an ancient walled city, and it's a hilltop type town, as you can sort of appreciate from this photo here, and dates back to the ancient times and been occupied by again many different groups in the past. But they built their fortresses here. It's again a walled city, and the name of the village is the town in the hills. And the main attraction here, aside from just the uniqueness of it and some of the history, is the truffle tasting. So the truffle, as we know, is a valuable type of fungi or mushroom. And in Croatia, they do have 4 different types. They have 3 black truffle options, and then the rare one is the white truffle. And so you have an opportunity at this tasting to try some of the different truffle. They have cheese, they have, again, chocolate. They have various options that you can try. And what's neat is this particular place, as you see, Pietro, they're a large producer of truffle. And you don't just try the tasting, they do a great explanation, sharing more about how this business has been operating for 6 generations, and they've been going into the Montavoon forest and really pressing on and fostering the secret rituals of hunting and preparing the truffles. So you actually learn, pardon me, about how they train the dogs and how the dogs go hunting for the truffle. It's really neat to learn about this, and of course do your tasting as you see here. So now I'm getting extra hungry. I think I have a couple more food photos, so I'll be really hungry at the end of this. But again, this is the truffle tasting that you do. Montavoon, before you come back to Opatia, and you stay the night there before departing the next day to go towards the Plivice Lakes, another incredible highlight on this program, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site since 1975. 1979, they designated this as a World Heritage Site, UNESCO World Heritage. And it's really neat because you have all these different hiking trails or walking paths along the wooden walking paths that go throughout, and it connects to different lakes and different waterfalls or free-flowing cascades. And what's attractive about this wonder of Croatia, arguably one of the wonders of the world, is the 16 lakes that are connected by all these free-flowing cascades and waterfalls. And the water is this clear. You can again see the waterfalls, the free-flowing cascades, or water. Again, just some of the impressive scenery, and it's just quite amazing to go throughout this area. So you do walk around here, seeing the different points, learn a little bit more about how this area sort of was formed, because it does cover a large area. You're not walking 295 square kilometers throughout this forest reserve, but you are doing a shorter portion throughout. And so you see the 16 terraced lakes, you do see some of the waterfalls, and then it extends into this limestone canyon as well. You will be taking, so it gives you another perspective there. On the right-hand side, you can see you're taking boat cruise as well. I was just speaking the other day to our partner in Croatia, and she said, October is a great month to travel there, especially when you start going mid-October, because the weather's still great. But the crowds, again, are just a lot quieter. If you were here in early September or the summer, it might take an hour till you get back onto the boat. So it becomes a little bit tiresome waiting around, where here it will be very easy. We just get right to the boat. It's about a 15-minute boat ride on this electric boat that they have, and it takes you to the other side of the Kozak Lake that they have. And so you go from, and this is actually the largest and the lowest lake in the upper lakes of the Plivice Lakes area. So you take this boat to the end, And then you get to the end. There is a hotel there called Hotel Juicero. We were looking at this. I've seen it before, but even 8 years ago, I have to say it was getting a little tired, and that tend to be sort of the go-to one. And it used to be a 4. It's really going down to 3. So we've chosen this hotel that's just about 4 kilometers or so, 3-4 kilometers from the Plivice Lakes entrance, but you're surrounded by nature. It's a nice location to be at. They have a great restaurant. And again, this hotel and reviews of all the hotels on this, if you look online, you'll see they're all 8.5 out of 10 in term or higher in terms of their overall score because of the many reviews, which is very high. I would say anything over 8 is very impressive for these different hotels, especially when you have so many different reviews that have been provided. So you have the one night. Again, it breaks up the pace to not have to drive from, going to Plivice and then down. You spend the night, you relax a bit before going into the Dalmatia coast, and you make your way to Zadar. Zadar, again, I was there 20 years ago, so things have changed slightly, but it is a historic town full of rich cultural and historical monuments. Here you can see that there's the Roman Forum. They have dating back to the 1st century AD. They also have a church dating back to the 9th century. And something that's really neat is the Zadar sea organs. You wonder what the heck is that? This picture may not give it away, but it is an architectural sound art object, which is located here on these steps here. Sort of looks like a piano or organ, I should say, and it's an experimental musical instrument actually. And so when it will play music when the sea waves and these tubes which are located underneath set amongst the large marble stairs, it really creates, as the waves are coming in, it plays this music. So it's just a really neat, entertaining area that people are sort of mesmerized by when they go here. But Zadar is, again, sort of this small little town, easy, fun to walk through the streets. And it has been known for the Roman and Venetian ruins that it has there as well. So you have a short tour there before going into, again, the Dalmatian hinterland, they call it, a little bit more of a remote area. And this is where you will try the Dalmatian wines. And some of the cuvées, which are these blended wines that you'll try as well, and these delicious Croatian tapas that they provide in to complement the wine, of course. So it's a really neat experience as you go away from Zadar into the countryside a bit to do this tasting. Another unique tasting experience that you'll have along this journey. And then you make your way towards Split. Again, I love so many different places in this trip, but Split, really, the last time I was there, something about it really grabbed my attention. It is quite beautiful. You can see the mountains in the background, right on the Adriatic coast. And it was historically, the name of Split was called Spalato. It is the second largest city in Croatia, but the largest in the Dalmatia area. And again, it's just a place where in the old city area, the Diocletian Palace being a UNESCO World Heritage Site, it's really fun to explore. They have the main promenade lined with those palm trees that you see there. It's just a really neat city to explore. And again, it's not too large. It's quite easy to go to the main areas like the old city area, the Diocletian Palace, and along the promenade as well. But we're staying at the Art Hotel, which is right here. It's in a good central location in the city of Split, and it's near really all the different attractions. So it's, again, you can go online to learn more about it, but it's an ideal hotel when staying in the Split area. The next day, after you spend your first night in Split, the next day you'll travel towards Trogir. It's only about a 30 to 45 minutes, not even, to drive there. But first in Split, we will be exploring Split, learning a little bit more on a sightseeing tour of Split in the old city. You'll see some of these 18th century homes, ancient Roman walls as well. And of course, you'll see the Diocletian Palace, which is one of the best preserved palaces or best preserved monuments of the Roman architecture really in the world. It's quite impressive. If you're a fan of Game of the Thrones, This is actually where a Game of the Thrones scene was filmed, where Daenerys locked up and trained her dragon. So again, just something to a little tidbit for you. But again, it's really impressive that this was the Emperor's Palace. It was built as a combination, really, of a luxury villa or summer home, and also it served as a Roman military camp as well. So really, just a neat location to visit and explore. And then we make our way after this light tour through Split towards sorry, just some of the different food markets, and then you make your way towards Trogir. And Trogir is sort of nicknamed again like a little Venice. It does have that feel. It's like a mini little Split in a way, but more of this mini Split combined with a little Venice. And they do call it like a floating museum town as well, because there's a lot of these churches or towers and palaces that are within Trogir, and it's just really neat. They also have a fortress that's on a small little island that you can see, but there's a lot of history dating back 2,300 years in this city of Trogir, and it's been influenced by Greeks, the Romans, the Venetians, UNESCO World Heritage Site. So you'll have the opportunity to explore here. And then you'll actually, when you're in Trogir, again, we do a light tour. You have some time to sort of explore before we go in for a meal here, a lunch in Trogir. And it's at the Tragos restaurant, which is in this really neat wine cellar type of ambiance with wooden ceiling and stone tiles. And they have sculptures or these pictures sort of depicting the history of Trogir. And it's really one of the go-to restaurants here. So it's an authentic experience, a nice lunch that you'll have at Tragos. Then you come back to Split. You do have the afternoon essentially to have at leisure, and that evening as well, you can do your own dinner as you wish as well. Then you will then go to the next day to the countryside a bit. This is back in the Split, sorry, another viewpoint here. And then you go into the Cliffs or Cliffs Fort. And this is just again a short drive, only about 30 minutes away from Split. There's the town of Split there, of Cliffs as well, but the fortress is really the main attraction. But the focus for us coming to this medieval fortress and town, and you do learn a little bit more about the history here, is that we'll be doing a Dalmatian food and lifestyle cooking class experience at a family estate. It's a really savory lunch that you'll have. And then basically, I'll show you some photos. So it's kind of in this setting. You get some of the local food, and it's a little bit more interactive, and you have a delicious meal. Again, all these food photos, I tell you, and then again, some just a nice lunch that you'll have. So it's the combination of the cooking class experience within the local area there, the authentic town, while also seeing the fortress. Then you come back to Split. You have the afternoon leisure again, and the evening to do what you wish. So it's built in some leisure time for you to enjoy as well. After the 3 nights in Split, we'll be then traveling towards Dubrovnik. But first, along the way, you'll be stopping in Stone, which is a small settlement. It's on the peninsula of the Peljasak Peninsula. It's a medieval town. It has this interesting kind of walled section to it, but it's also really well known for its oysters and mussels. So that is part of the experience here. And I'm sorry, the wine as well. Can't go out without the wine here. But Zinfandel, just a fun fact for you, Zinfandel is originally from Croatia. And again, it's originally from Croatia, and not many people know that, but it's also the parent of Croatia's flagship grape, which is Plavac Mali. And Plavac Mali is the famous wine here that you'll be trying. It's, again, a close relative to the Zinfandel. So in this winery, it's a traditional winemaking business that they have passed on for generations. There is a theme here, as you can appreciate, a lot of passed on from generation to generation traditions and throughout this program. And here you'll do a nice wine tasting, learn about the wine processing, the wine tasting, have a snack. You do have, again, some oysters and mussels, as that's a popular treat or item in this town. Now, you have that experience. Here's just some of the photos of the tasting in this winery location. oysters and mussels. Again, lots of food. And then again, you're continuing along the Dalmatia coast. And as you drive in between Split and Dubrovnik, again, you're just wowed every corner you turn. It's winding around. You're seeing some of the breathtaking views in the distance along the coastline. The Adriatic Sea, as you see here, is blue. It is unlike any other blue that you've seen. It really is quite impressive. You also will see as you go along these areas, there's a lot of different bays or harbors, a lot of the different boats of different shapes and sizes that are going along the coastline. You stop in the odd area for picture taking as well. It just this picture doesn't do it justice, unfortunately, but it is just quite a spectacular drive as you make your way to the Pearl of the Adriatic, which is Dubrovnik. And I love Dubrovnik. It's gained a lot of popularity over the last years, not just because of cruises, but because, again, Game of Thrones and just the climate, some of the beaches in this area has really brought in a lot of people to this destination, and the uniqueness of the old town of Dubrovnik and its strategic location. Dubrovnik over the years has really faced a lot of battles and been, taken over or annexed. Other countries or other countries have sort of taken over from it, but it does date back many years. And I'll share a little bit of story, but it was formerly known as Ragusa. And the population, by the way, is about 40,000. In 1979, the old city more so, became a UNESCO list of the World Heritage Site. And it really is just so neat where you have this medieval architecture with a fortified old town. And the history of the city, they say, dates back to about the 7th century. And it's been, under the protection of the Byzantine Empire to even the Republic of Venice. And it's just in such a strategic location. But from 14th to the 19th century, Dubrovnik was actually considered a free state. And then eventually there's, again, some different things that took place, but even a devastating earthquake hit the country at the latter part of the 1600s. And then over time, it then became part of Yugoslavia, and then eventually became independent during 1991 after the Croatian War and so forth. So again, you learn a little bit more about that, of course, with the guide. It comes more to life. But it is a beautiful city. Again, seeing the brown, reddish orange rooftops, really spectacular. When you're here, we'll take a walking tour. So you have the first night. The next day, you walk around on a city tour, and then you'll essentially see some of the main attractions. But in the old town, it's people live in here, but also there's the shops, the restaurants. They have the main street there in Dubrovnik, which is called Stradan or Plaka. And here it's a limestone paved pedestrian street, and it runs about 300 meters around in the old town. And it's, again, historic part of the city, which is surrounded by the old city walls of Dubrovnik, which you could, on your leisure time, go to the top, go to the old city walls. You go up the stairs, you pay a ticket to go up top, and you get different perspectives around the top of the fortress. And again, if you're Game of Thrones fans, by the way, this was King's Landing. This was depicted in King's Landing. It's, again, comes to life, and they share more about that when you're there. Along the walk as well, you could see the old pharmacy, which is in the Franciscan monastery. It's actually one of the oldest pharmacies in Europe, dating back to 1317. There's the Saint Blaise or Vlaho, which is a patron saint of this historic city, which you learn a bit more about. Again, it's just fun to walk through and seeing the activity of the local people here. Going in October, near the end of October, really is a great time because there's no crowds, not as many crowds as you would experience again in the summer or even in September. So it feels unique to be there and special to be there at this time of the year. And just fun to explore and seeing the different viewpoints throughout the city. And then basically you have sort of the afternoon at leisure to explore Dubrovnik a little bit more. You can see some of the different beaches that they have. Go shopping, just even going to a restaurant and taking it in with a beer or a coffee as you wish. It's really just quite fun to do that here. And then you again, just another view. This is on the old city walls. King's Landing area. You'll see a lot of these cannons set up as well along the old city walls. And this is your hotel, the La Pad Hotel, which is a great hotel. It's about 3 kilometers from the old town, but it is a unique hotel. And we chose this one because it's, the pricing, by the way, to be in Old Dubrovnik now is very high. Second, they're very small hotels, generally speaking, and to accommodate groups is rare. Most companies do stay outside the city center because of the just the proximity and just how easy it is to be only 3 kilometers away. It's way less, and you can get into the town by a bus. There's a bus station right outside. Very easy to go in and out. You can walk to Old Dubrovnik from here if you wish, about 30 minutes or so, but the bus would take you in under 10 minutes approximately. It's a neat hotel because it's privately owned hotel, and it's a century-long tradition. Again, a century-long tradition in hospitality. And it's, you have this sort of historical charm of the hotel with some modern influences as well. Nice pool. There's nearby. You can walk to these different restaurants. The ocean and the beach is, about 2,000 feet away. So they say it's about 15-minute walk to get there, but it's a nice neighborhood to explore, and you kind of can relax here aside from being in the hustle and bustle, which people do appreciate staying at this hotel. And you'll see a lot of great reviews on this particular property, and really savvy travelers tend to stay here. And then the evening, you'll go into the hinterland area of Dubrovnik, into the countryside a bit more again, not too far from your hotel. You'll have a nice farewell dinner with some great food to really end your journey in Dubrovnik. This is where you would fly back home. Generally, you'd fly back from Dubrovnik through Zagreb just because of that connection. There's no from Dubrovnik. It's hard to find anything that really connects to any other major city. So it would be going back through Zagreb. And it's only, like 45-minute flight or so to get there. But we can help coordinate, again, flights. We can help coordinate pre and post days. If you want to arrive a bit earlier into Zagreb, we can arrange. If you want to stay a little bit longer in Dubrovnik or explore other areas in Europe or go to Montenegro or Albania, this is a growing destination. These are some things that we can do for you. In terms of the air, there's different options for air. And Lynette, who's also on this call, she's our group reservation agent managing this group. I know she's been having some conversations with some people who are booked on this trip and looking at different options. Depending on how many people we have departing from the same departure gateway, the same dates, we could potentially do a group block. But if anyone's sort of deviating, spending extra nights here and there, it might be best to just do it on an individual basis. But I was looking at some flights, and they actually seem pretty reasonable in cost from Winnipeg. Yeah, I know from Winnipeg, being a Winnipegger, where I was born and raised, going from Winnipeg, you tend to have to go through Toronto, and then it connects usually through Amsterdam, sometimes through other European destinations, and then down to Zagreb. Down to Zagreb. And then it would be similar on the return back. But again, these are some things that we can look at if you do end up booking. We can start looking at the air in the next couple months. That's generally when we start looking at the air, but we can do it at any time as well. So it gives you some information. Now I'm just going to go over some of the dates the dates, of course, but also the rates, just to give you a good understanding of this. This is all on the travel site, of course. And some of the information you may already have, but I just want to make sure it's clear. The regular rate per person is, again, based on 2 people in a room, is $6,299 Canadian. This does include taxes. If you book by the 31st or until sold out, because it potentially could prior to then, you would receive that $300 early booking savings, and that member rate would be 5,999 Canadian dollars. This is based on a minimum of 15 passengers. I know we're getting close to getting there anyway, with about 4 others that have expressed interest on booking. And I know some people have shared just wanted the presentation to get a better understanding of it before they made a commitment, which is totally fair. The single rate, we do have 1 single booked already. So we do have 1 single room available at this stage. And it does go up in price. This is based on the hotels at $6,999. But if you are a single traveler and you do want to match up with someone, we do get inquiries from other single travelers that wish to be matched up. We can introduce you. We're not a dating service, so we really try to focus again on the same gender. And at the end of the day, we can connect you both by email. You have a conversation and see if there's a fit to travel together. So that's something we can do. We've had a couple single travelers express interest in potentially wanting to match up. So again, just something to keep in mind. Now, in terms of what's included, I'm not going to go through all this, but you can see it here or peruse it and see it on the site. But maybe the key ones to mention: the group arrival and departure transfers are included. If any individual transfers that are outside of the group arrival and departure transfers would just be $50 Canadian per person to do that. If there's more people booked on to that transfer, it may be reduced. But again, it's $50 per person for that. But generally, it's all in one group arrival departure transfers that we would do. The private transfers, transportation throughout the tour. You have 13 nights at the 4 to 5-star hotels. Again, it's inclusive of tax. You have your licensed tour guide, the local licensed English-speaking guides, entrance fees to various locations as I went through along the way, like the Ljubljana Castle, the funicular, some different locations as you see there. And then you also have 27 meals or tastings. There's 23 actual meals, breakfast, lunch, dinners. And then there's about 4 different tastings that you do have throughout, which are quite unique. And again, I'm sure you really enjoy those. They have the audio sets, the whisper headsets where the guide speaks in the microphone. And again, you can be a little further away and still hear the guide. There's porterage at the hotels provided. All the tipping is included for luggage handling, tour manager, local guides, and drivers. We really try to make our trips very seamless, more inclusive with again our brand standards. Now, in terms of the what's excluded would be the round trip airfare, cancellation and out of country medical insurance, any other items that are not listed in the itinerary, maybe the odd meal or drinks or whatnot, or any optional excursions. We really would just have potentially 1 or 2 optional excursions, more so on the last full day that you have at leisure in Dubrovnik, because that last full day. So I apologize, when I finished the presentation, we had that last night. The next day, I think that full day you would have at leisure, you'd have the night, sorry, and then the day you would depart in the morning. So I was correct. But essentially that one last day, full day in Dubrovnik, you could do some optional excursions like going to Montenegro, as I mentioned, but we can provide more information closer to, and that doesn't have to be booked until around final payment. Now, the deposit is $500 per person. Again, if you book, we do have some flexibility. It's easier to get you on the list and off the list, but we do, again, have some of this flexibility. The $500 is per person. It's non-refundable due at time booking. But if you do decide to cancel by March 31st, then you can receive $250 back as a refund, and the remaining $250 would just be a future travel credit with Trip Merchant Journeys that essentially lasts for up to 2 years of the original travel date. So again, that's something that you can consider if you really want to lock in your space and you don't know for sure. That's an option, but hopefully you do go on this departure. And then in terms of the final payment, that would not be due until July 8th, 2024. And I think that's pretty much in terms of those details. Now, how to book, just to make this clear, when you go to your website, the RTAM travel site, and you go into the group departures section, or if you simply go right to the highlights of Croatia, including Slovenia program, which you may already have the link, there will be on that page register now button. And if you click the register now button, then essentially you just show your indication that you're interested, and you can provide a few notes if you want for us. Now, if you are ready to book, you're committed. Really the next step after finishing the register now form indicating your interest would be to complete the reservation form. This is just to collect some of your personal details, passport information that we need to communicate to our supplier in Croatia, Slovenia, to make sure all is in order and everything is set up based on your exact name per passport, etc. But probably one of the easier ways, if you are ready to make a decision or you have further questions, we're happy to answer them. You can contact us by email at info@tripmerchant.com, or you can contact Lynette, as Annette mentioned, Lynette Kelly is the one managing this group departure in conjunction with myself. Her email is lynette@tripmerchant.com, or you can call her toll-free number at 1-800. This is our main line, but her extension is 507. So you can always find our toll-free number on the travel site. And then extension for Lynette would be 507. Next slide, and then I am complete. Hvala vam, thank you in Croatian. I hope you learned a lot today. I hope this has inspired you to consider doing this trip to Croatia, Slovenia. At this time, if you do have any questions, I encourage you to type them into the chat box within the Zoom menu panel. If you don't have any questions at this time, that is fine. Please feel free to email us later or tomorrow, and we'll be happy to answer. But I do see there are some questions potentially in here, and I'll just do my best to answer. Maybe it wasn't a question. It sounds like they're just having trouble getting in, but it looks like everybody is in. But maybe just to share as well, if you are wanting to go into the RTAM travel site, again, it is rtam.tripmerchant.ca. So rtam.tripmerchant.ca, and the password to enter is all capitalized RTAM TM18. RTAM TM18. And hopefully you got that. If not, again, please feel free to email us and we'll share that with you. And look forward to this group. I know Peter is excited about hosting this group with everybody. We have a small group that has already formed, as I mentioned, close to 10 people right now. And it would be great to have up to 24 people. That would really be the maximum we would take on this trip. But if there's no other questions, I'll conclude it for the evening. We will have a recording for this presentation, which we'll share by the end of the day tomorrow, which you can always share with family and friends. And we'll also put in our travel newsletter next week. So if there's no other questions, thank you very much. I wish you a great evening and happy Valentine's Day. Take care. First off, Croatia and Slovenia. I'll turn off my camera so you can really focus on the slides. But thank you very much for your time. Again, I'm going to get started. There might be some more people that join as I start the presentation or as I go through it. Just going to see if I can move this here. Let's see, there we are. Perfect. I trust everybody can see and hear me clearly. But